What comes to mind when you think of Mexico? David 552 said. Corner home stores. Blew my mind that people opened up a store in their living room or kitchen. Or Oxxo, got all my snacks there. It's Still Magic said. There is this soup I had at someone's house in the middle of nowhere in Mexico and I think about it all the time. It had hominy and pork and it was red but not tomatoes. I think it was some kind of pepper broth. It was so good and I will never forget it. Edit. Wow guys, it looks like I'm on a quest now and I have the first clues. Thank you. I'm excited to try to make my own, and I'll make sure to skip the Rachel Ray recipe lol. Thico Mifu RR said. I recently found out Mexicans actually call it Dia de Muertos. Only in the US it includes lost due to the way it translates from Day of the Dead. Celestial Horizon said. Funny story about that is that, at least in California, it reduced sales of avocados from Mexico. It brought to people's awareness that some avocados were imported so people started buying the USA avocados instead lol. Stories for Days said. If you ever go to Cozumel, go by the big church and there you can get scooters for $15 a day. Rent one of those bad boys and ride up and down the coast and feel the wind in your hair and smell the salt in the air and stop at the beach and go up the lighthouse and have a beer at the Bob Marley bar. The further you get away from the cruise ships the cheaper the food gets and the better. Every day is Taco Tuesday in Cozumel, Mexico. And if you ever make it all the way around to the wild side, a savage site on the east, stay at a hotel called Ventanas del Mar. It's called the Hotel of a Million Stars. At first you won't realize it because it's just a warm windy day at a hotel up on the rocks overlooking the crystal clear ocean. But when you open those windows all the way and feel that powerful breeze off the water and you open the door that leads to the patio with the hammock, it will feel more amazing than you ever felt in life. But then it even gets better because they serve lobster on the beach and you eat until you are full and you take the hand of the beautiful Argentinian and go back up to the room and you see the sun go down and you sit on that back patio with her and smoke the wheat and stare up into the sky until 100 million stars come out. You will only think one thought. You will think, I have to remember this feeling because I will think about this every day for the rest of your life. And you will be right. Edit. Thanks for the gold awards, you beautiful bastards. More of my stories are here if you want to read more. The third one down is the longer Mexico story. Picante Duke said. Best holiday ever. Met up with friends we met the year before in the south of France in San Luis Potosí. Stayed with their families for a week. Grandma made breakfast every morning and we played domino with her every evening. When we left we gave her a book about the Netherlands, written in Spanish, and tears were flowing. Traveled another 2 weeks starting in Mexico City and going to Veracruz, Palenque, Oaxaca, Puerto Escondido and back to Mexico City. Never met friendlier people than Mexicans in the food. Oh my god, so food. Again. Best holiday ever. Mermonvan said. There are a lot of pre-Hispanic civilizations that took place in Mexico long before the Aztecs. Some even defeated the growing Aztecs, Mexicas, before they became the empire they are recognized for. An interesting fact about the Aztecs, compared to other civilizations, is that it is not well known their exact origin. It is known that they came from some part of the north of Mexico. They claimed to be the chosen ones to rule the Valley of Mexico, so apparently they destroyed every evidence of their past, maybe to hide a more humble and poor origin of the group. Suical said. Yes this. I have 3, and they're the cutest little babies. Edit. Oh gosh, I'm sorry I didn't get back to you all. I do have a life outside of Reddit. Yes, I have 3. Here are 2 of them, as the third one is a little camera shy. I'll try again later. Brown one is called Charlie, leucistic one is called Lucy. Very original, I know. Glow-in-the-dark one who is not featured is called Spoopy. https://imgur.com/a/nirno3. To answer questions, they're pretty easy to take care of. My husband does the feeding for the most part, and we keep the tank clean, but they're pretty self-sufficient. We have live plants and wood in there. They don't like light, so we keep lots of places for them to hide in there. Happy to answer any questions and or try to get more pictures for you all. MTN 4444 said. I visited Mexico for the first time to attend a friend's wedding. It was September and holy hell, I had not, before or after, ever experienced that kind of heat. Over 100 degrees plus humidity. It was hard to be outside even for 5 minutes between the hours of 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. without wanting to take a shower immediately afterwards because you were drenched in sweat. Thank God the wedding took place at sunset because we stayed inside as much as we could to avoid the heat otherwise. So I'll always remember Mexico for the extreme heat and humidity and never, ever again visit there in September. Edit. The city was Cabo San Lucas. Nick Shinobi said, I have a friend that lives in Puerto Vallarta all year round now and he says it's like that in the summer there. I usually visit in March and I think it's hot. I couldn't imagine 35+C days there when 26C is too hot lol. He's from Chicago originally and goes back in the winter sometimes just to get a winter break. Made me laugh the first time he told me because I need that heat break sun for a week too every year. I never thought of needing a cold break lol. Wolfgang Petri Ultra said, spent a semester abroad studying in Guadalajara, the second largest city. Coming from Germany I remember hospitality, being welcomed with open arms, a nice climate plus tasty and affordable food. Thing is most houses are surrounded with high fences, made me feel isolated rather than living in an open neighboring community. Also traffic is the worst in the cities. Takes a crazy amount of time getting from A to B by car or bus and cycling is quite dangerous as there are almost no bike paths like in Germany. Danger Pineapple said, immediately. The very first thing that came to my mind, when I read this question, was the shape of the right edge of Mexico, curving around the Gulf of Mexico, and how I think it's kind of an odd or unique shape. After that, I thought about the temperature that I assume it would be in Mexico. I live in Florida, in the US, which I find unbearably warm, so I thought about how Mexico would probably be even warmer, since it's a bit lower closer to the equator. Those two things, the coastline and heat, caused me to imagine a landscape with palm trees, which led to wondering what sorts of trees would be common in Mexico. An uninteresting answer, but an honest one. Dharmic Cosmos said, some things that come to mind. The good, delicious, flavorful food and spices. I absolutely love the richness and diversity of flavors in Mexican cuisines. Affordability cost-wise, many things in Mexico are very cheap or are not excessively expensive. The cost to stay or live in Mexico is significantly less than in Western counterpart nations. Hot heat, climate. Stunning landscapes and beaches on the coastal region's portions, as well as deserts and dry landscapes. Rich culture, and practices both spiritual, religious, and beyond with a lot of history, depth, and beauty. Hardworking, strong, and dedicated people who are deeply resilient. Mexican people face a lot of nasty and demeaning racial stereotypes and can be treated like users, freeloaders, lazy people etc. Yet I see many who do the work of 10 people, or who do the jobs that many others would not for half or even 1/10th the pay and sometimes even no pay. Dharmic Cosmos said, a people who are looking for better, safer, stable, and secure lives and environments. I understand why many Mexican people migrate to other countries. I see a people who are looking for a life that is healthy, expansive, and supportive. And in this I see myself as I want the same as well for myself. Healthcare advances and affordable reasonable medical care. There are some treatments and health advances that exist in Mexico that may not be accessible, available, or possible for others financially in their westernized countries' nations. Example, I've seen people to Mexico to get extensive dental work done for a very reasonable rate. The bad. Poverty and corruption, to include a lot of people who are not supported properly and stably for basic life needs. Extreme violence, terrorism, and corruption from gangs and horrible groups of people who commit atrocious and horrific crimes against people including murdering entire families, hanging people from bridges, shooting out vehicles and houses, kidnapping etc. And this also ties into the point before of corruption, as it still is ongoing and the public are not protected from this still. Exploitation. Mexican people are exploited and can be abused due to economic challenges and other vulnerabilities. Dharmic Cosmos said, this includes Mexican workers being exploited and underpaid in America, but also includes sexual abuse and exploitation, child labor, and so forth. Government corruption and passivity non-action to help Mexico and its people stabilize and grow. The stupid wall that the U.S. spent an absurd amount to build and the separation and discrimination and racism that America has been perpetuating against Mexico and its people. This is just wrong on so many levels and is awful. It reminds me of what happened in Germany when Jews were made to be the problem and walls and borders and wars started. Just some random boy too said. As someone who has a father that worked in the government of Mexico back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah, corruption is just the most average thing. Cartels get away with things that wouldn't happen in other countries, and also, the huge racism problem within Mexican communities. People who are darker bully lighter people and vice versa. It gets really bad just because of that, and some have even killed themselves or gotten killed because of that racism. On the other hand, yeah, the food is good bro, and it's a shame that all the good stuff is dying out due to big companies swallowing smaller ones. D1G17L said. This will probably be an unpopular one. That it's the real incarnation of an actual libertarian society. Little to no government oversight in most industries. People are technically free to do almost anything they want. The cartels represent the ultimate form of capitalist libertarians. They engage in doing things freely as they please with little to no government oversight or control. All of these things are ideals of libertarians. To boot, the people who call themselves libertarians hate this idea. Double Den said. This one very hard-working family that owns a very fun and successful Mexican restaurant near where I live. Friendliest folk you ever meet, tastiest food on the damn planet emo, gorgeous decoration and color schemes, great music and bands, and their smiles they always have. The owner loves Star Wars too, lol. I haven't been able to see them since before the pandemic. I hope they're doing okay. Agent Sparkles88 said. When I was 4, my mom went shopping with a friend of hers there. It's worth noting I grew up in a city in the US that's literally right next to Mexico. So when I think of Mexico, I remember being 4 years old and lost in a store looking for my mom. When I did find her, she bought me a marionette puppet to cheer me up. My sister is terrified of puppets though and said that its lips looked like it had blood around its mouth, so that puppet disappeared fast. Significant Fee 3083 said. It's interesting what outside perspectives, unfamiliar with the inner workings of a country, and solely familiar with its exports geography, look like. I lived in Mexico for a couple of years, and what come to mind immediately are two things. Mexico's overwhelming corruption and its natural traditional beauty, starkly at odds with one another. While the vistas and culture, including older Mayan, are breathtaking, the corruption is so ingrained into the national system it's impossible to ignore. I was robbed blind by the police in tourist cities on more than one occasion. The number of drunk police officers that I saw roughly equaled the number of sober. Internal affairs departments seem to be purely cosmetic. That's just law enforcement, the tip of the iceberg. Under the analogical waters you find cartel violence and kidnapping across the board. Violence, sexual, physical, and emotional run rampant. Altires of government are infested with greed-motivated corruption. These things in turn affect the class structure and economy. So yes, geographically Mexico does have a cute shape. Especially from the comfort of our first world primary school classrooms, in our financially, emotionally, physically stable living rooms. Eli Ismail said. Idiot drivers, a lot of people mention corruption. People will complain about corruption in one breath and pay to get their license without passing a test in the next. Border wait times and the traffic caused on both sides of the border because of it. Hypocrisy. Mexicans love to shit on Mexican Americans. If a Mexican American says they're Mexican, Mexicans will say that they're not actually. If a Mexican American says they're Mexican American, Mexicans will say they are denying their roots. Anything a Mexican American does is wrong, but if a Mexican American ever says anything about a Mexican, it's kicking someone at a disadvantage. This is mostly true of Mexicans who aren't directly related to any Mexican Americans. Seems like an inferiority complex. Tacos and all the food. Guanajuato Reich said. We Mexicans hate them too, lol. Our national football system is extremely corrupt and hinders promising players from developing their talent, while letting underperforming players play in the national team just because they make more money for advertising. Chicharito sucked way before he went to MLS. Ochoa has never been Mexico's best goalkeeper. Salcido plays like shit every time he is called to the national team. Even sadder, Raul Gudiño, the best goalkeeper in the 2013 U17 World Cup, didn't become a starter until 2019. One of the most promising Mexican players wasted 6 years of his career due to Mexican football corruption. You probably know all of this, I'm just writing it to those who don't know. Also, while puto is originally a homophobic word, we Mexicans don't use it necessarily to insult homosexuality. Most of the time, it is the Mexican equivalent of motherfucker. Diamond Space Nuggets said, I'm actually curious because I'm from another side of the world. Did I cause offense when I mentioned Fluffy in connection to Mexico? I said it because as far as I know, if your parents are from X country, then your origin is from that same X country by default, even if you're born somewhere else. In his case I was thinking, Mexican parents means he's Mexican. Could you shed some light on this, and why I got the downvotes to my first comment? Splurge Splatoon said, Sombreros, Speedy Gonzales, cartel hit squads, footage of people heading to the US border, ICE agents laughing as they pour out caches of water bottles, guacamole, the Dead by Dawn bar, Cheech Marin, sanitized tourist resorts fenced off from actual Mexitio, Day of the Dead Skulls, Heat, Siesta, journalists' murders, evidence of the war on drugs failure and the consequences, spring break kids visiting border towns to party, shitty brown stems and sticks weed, cheap medication plastic surgery. UK. So my perceptions are based on American media depiction stereotypes and international news footage plus my love of Speedy Gonzales cartoon as a kid, 80s. PC Noobish said. Text taken from John D. Rockefeller Masonic Creed. We will keep their lives short and their minds weak while pretending to do the opposite. We will use their knowledge of science and technology in subtle ways so that they never see what is happening. We will use soft metals, aging accelerators and sedatives in food and water as well as in the air. They will be covered in poisons wherever they turn. The soft metals will make them lose their minds. We will promise to find a cure from our many funds, and yet we will give them more poison. Chemical poisons will be absorbed through the skin of idiots who believe that certain hygiene and beauty products presented by great actors and musicians will bring eternal youth to their faces and bodies, and through their thirsty and hungry mouths, we will destroy their minds and systems of internal organs reproduction. However, their children will be born as disabled and deformed and we will hide this information. Antique 8029 said. Guaymas, in the state of Sonora. It's on the Pacific coast. We'd go every Christmas and Easter from when I was about 6 to when I was 17. My mom and dad got a motel room, and us kids would either sleep in the RV, or sleep on the beach. It was a lovely town. People were very nice. We'd spend all day fishing or surfing or just hanging in town chewing chiclets, chicles, and eating handmade tortillas filled with rice and beans. After the peso was devalued, the prices rose sky high and we stopped going. Ha ha, yes, that's how old I am. But my best memories of those times were when we would go to church to celebrate Christmas and Easter. I still have 8 of my lace mantillas I wore to the masses. These were, our best family vacations ever. False Flag said. I was at a nice bar in a hotel in the Northeast and was sitting next to 2 women who turned out to be mother and daughter. The daughter was a beautiful blonde and the mother was trying to set me up with her. She mentioned that she had retired to a certain Mexican town, and I told her that I would never even visit Mexico. She told me how great it was, etc. I got digits from the daughter. I called her a couple of weeks later, but in that time, it hit the news that some gunman had killed some American tourists in the same town the mother lived in. Mephisto the Hater said, Ballet Folklorico Dio de los Muertos, Calaveras and Calicus Mole, never did like it. Vicente Fernandez, and every older woman I know being in love with him Los Angeles Azules, and their music playing at literally every quinceañera, family reunion, and birthday party that I've been to in my life. Cartels in the small towns they control corrupt police family houses pieces of land that are heavily guarded constantly because of the aforementioned. My heritage, as much as it may not seem like it at times, and I think of my extended family down there whom I'll probably never have the chance to meet. Phoenix 2 said. I've been there a few times and have a lot of great memories, mostly involving just how dang nice everyone I've come across is there. But, the first time I went there was in 1996 with the high school group. We went all around the country and spent the last 2 days in Cancun. The night before we left a few of us snuck out of our rooms and went to a beach cantina to grab a beer or two. We're hanging out and chatting when the girl sitting across from me gets huge eyes and says shit. Mrs. DeMarco, not a real name, is here. We toss our beers onto the beach. Our server, sizing up the situation, immediately comes over with Coca-Colas while another worker quick runs onto the beach and grabs the bottles we tossed. Our teacher spotted us about 10 seconds later, and asks the server nearby if we were drinking alcohol, to which he replies loudly enough for us to hear only Coca-Cola, and our teacher, still suspicious, tells us it's past curfew and to immediately pay our bill and go back to our rooms. I don't know what we tipped that guy, but it was all the rest of our pesos and he earned every last one. This is always the first thing I think of when I think of Mexico. Blood said. Eating mango with chili on it from the street carts and being able to understand the language while my dad didn't. Being treated with kindness by shopkeepers, having it explained that I find one shoe in the bin to get the other shoe, border town shops. I was given lots of attention from tias and abuelas, candy or fruit all the time, always with that tasty-ass chili. Less cool, seeing the federales go by with heavy weapons, clearing through the crazy congested traffic with ease. There was a noticeable drop in the atmosphere when the federales were present. It was normal for border towns, but also you could tell how uneasy it made literally everyone. I spent a lot of time in Mexico growing up. My adoptive family came from Monterrey and surrounding. I lost my grip on the language after not using it for years and years, but I'm back to being able to read it, but I don't think I'll ever be as fluent as I was when I was a child and was in the thick of it. I miss Mexico. I loved watching people just enjoy their lives and hearing the excited voices speaking a language I'd always loved. My great-aunt married a pilot way back when she was 16, and she's 90 now. She lives in Mexico City and speaks Spanish better than English. Junior 16 said. Corruption and cartels, literally everything over there is run by money. You want something done that will take couple of years, just pay them, they will do it right away. Stopped by police, just pay them off and they will let you go. The more money you have, the better. Also cartels, if you're driving late at night, they will stop you to make sure you're not another cartel member and ask you couple of questions. What are you doing? Where are you from? Where do you live? They will stop you like a police officer with police lights. If you get unlucky, they might take your truck. Whiskey Buffalo SB said. The fucking free-for-all that is the atmosphere of what is or is not allowed legal in many places, and the varying shades of color that takes. This isn't to say that Mexico is a lawless hot sub of chaotic drug-fueled anarchy, but only that a lot of what is or isn't acceptable is socially derived and enforced, rather than legally reinforced. Also, for all the fear are cartels, in some fucked up ways, cartels make certain areas safer. I spent most of my time this summer in a beach town openly known to be run by a Mexican drug cartel. I mean, to the extent that guys will approach you in street and casual as hell see if you want to buy some coke or weed. And in general, it was pretty damn safe. Very few robberies or assaults to speak of. Why? Because the cartel wants the tourists to feel safe, so they'll come to the town on vacation, spend money on businesses, many of which they take small tithes from, and most importantly, buy their drugs. They care about maintaining that atmosphere so much that rapists, muggers, and thieves are brutally made an example of until it's common knowledge that everybody is better off if we keep it chill, party, and do some blow. It all depends where you go. A lot of cities, further away from the border, can generally be counted on to be more first world average when it comes to law enforcement, though it's pretty common knowledge that most police officers will look the other way for a small bribe, so long as the offense isn't too great. Just take some time to learn about where you're heading. Most places in Mexico are filled with kind people and beautiful culture. Some of it is a little crazy, some of it is a little dangerous, some of it is remarkably chill, just like anywhere else. Just whatever you do, don't sell drugs on cartel turf without their blessing. They will straight up cut your hand off. Hopilittle said. Sombrero, but for real, as a Canadian who have traveled quite a few places, I loved Mexico so much. Such a colorful culture, seems like everyone there was a big music fan, the food was amazing and the views are just unreal. Can't wait to go back. Everyone was so nice, especially when I wore my Toronto Maple Leafs shirt out one night. Was not expecting the support, but IDK man, that place was just so full of love. JPH 139 said. Movies. Mexico is one of the sleeper countries when it comes to top-notch cinema. Over the past decade, it's finally getting the esteem it deserves from the wider cultural sphere. Of the past 10 Best Director Oscars, half have gone to Mexican directors, 2 for Cuarón, 2 for Inarritu, 1 for Del Toro. And the past 20-30 years have been amazing, some of my favorite movies of all time in the modern era. But Mexico has been making movies, great, world-class movies, going back to the 30s. Latin America in general takes a back seat to Europe, France, Italy, Sweden, and Asia, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, when it comes to foreign films in the English-speaking world, but there's so much good stuff there.